What is this? What we have here is the latest generation, the 6th generation of the Ford Bronco, built on the full-size pickup truck platform, not to be mistaken for the smaller subcompact vehicle that you're finding in the Bronco Sport, which is built in Mexico. This vehicle here, in fact, is built in Michigan. This features the latest either 2.3 liter turbo 4-cylinder engine or the 2.7 liter turbo 6. And of course, there's an upgrade to the Raptor, which is well over 400 horsepower and 3-liter V6 twin turbo. The original Bronco started way back in 1966 and ran about 30 years up to 1996. First generation was a subcompact SUV. The second generation, roughly in 1978, came out, turned into a full-size large SUV. Then there was a bit of a hiatus. Ford decided to put it on the back burner until 2021, and then they introduced the latest and greatest Ford Bronco, like we're looking at right here. Now, this particular unit features some base engine, base transmission, and we're going to talk some of the specifications, but in detail we're talking about the Big Bend edition. As you'll notice right here, you've got a more entry-level vehicle. Now, if you've been shortlisting some off-road capable SUVs, chances are the Toyota 4Runner as well as the Wrangler by Jeep has come up on your list, and the Ford Bronco has certainly made that short list as well. Well, if I can add, this almost blends the three together and makes the best of the bunch. That being said, the Toyota's probably got the reigning reliability, the Jeep has the longevity and has the branding, but this one's a much better ride, and we'll talk about the ride quality here shortly. Let's start with the exterior. Right here you have this unique set of headlights, and I definitely will say it's very branded, really tries to stay true to the overall style from back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The grille does as well, and that script is true to the branding already as well. Up here you have these holy pooper handles right here. Quite interesting, great tie downs that you can utilize to tie down gear. Maybe if you plan to go off-roading, this offers a great place to put your ratchet straps, or maybe even bungee straps, or whatever. You want to tie some goodies to the hood if you're going off-roading. Now, this version has a lot of plastic. I noticed plastic all the way around, and as I've mentioned, this is the Big Bend, so we're dealing with a lower trim level. You also got this plastic handles, but look at the oddity. When you pull the handle away, you get this strange, quirky look. You see the barrel stays back there, but the handle pulls out. It sort of looks a little cheap if you ask me, and there's lots of plastic pretty much throughout the rest of this exterior of the body panel. Now, I do like these gunmetal gray rims, definitely a nice look, particularly against the dark gray exterior of the rest of this vehicle. You do get a branded looking taillights, looks a lot like the 80s generation of the Ford Ranger. Very, very cool. More plastic themes, and the exterior does carry the extra tire, so should you have a problem in the mud off-roading, that's an indication that you need to have access to your tire if you get stuck. The last thing you want to do, like a lot of vehicles, is reach underneath there and have to pull it out from underneath if your vehicle's submersed in the mud. That's a great touch, and they're keeping true to that. You do get a rear wiper on this vehicle, and more branding with the little horsey, the Bronco, definitely a nice touch. I've noticed something again with this particular model, is we are utilizing something that's a little bit more of a street rubber on here. And again, as I say, I would definitely spec up if you're thinking about buying one of these. This one's more price point, the Big Bend, because it's got the base engine, smaller wheel package, and certainly you're missing some of the hardware, because if you look along the bottom here, there's a bunch of bolt holes, but it's missing any kind of step guards, and I truly believe that looks a little bit unfinished. Now, a couple things to note. As I already mentioned, this is the full-size version, and as a result, what you're going to see is the full-size frame underneath this vehicle, and that's an indication that you've got a vehicle that's much more heavy-duty, more sturdy, like a pickup truck, instead of the sport version of the Bronco is more of a unibody and certainly not meant for off-road. Not to mention that the sport Bronco is actually made in Mexico, and many would argue that that version is not as well made. Not to mention as well, the Bronco Sport does carry the smaller, the turbo 3-cylinder engines as well as the turbo 2-liter engines, but this one here does start with the turbo 2.3 EcoBoost. Now, another exterior feature I find really fascinating, other than the fact that they like to brand themselves, you got a Bronco script here on the front glass, nice detailing there. You do have this mirror that's fold away, but I did notice in in playing around here that it does look a little bit flimsy here, if you ask me. Now I get it, when you're pulling that away, it's meant to hop up and turn and swivel, but it does feel a little bit flimsy. But hey, maybe that's made like that so that if you hit something, it breaks away and it's less likely to come apart. You got touch access in, but what I do like is this roof that does come apart in segments, so it makes it accessible, usable. It means if you're just in the front, you can remove that front section, possibly you can remove the midsection, and even leave the back in totally enclosed. If you've got some goodies back here, it's sort of nice to keep that secure. If you've got bags or goodies, or maybe equipment you don't want to get wet, it's sort of nice to even maybe compartmentalize and remove only one segment of roof. A very, very great feature on this vehicle. I love that particular system as well. We can't forget heavy duty antennae. How many cars are rocking antennas these days? Not many, but this here is meant for action, and it's on a nice rubbery swivel, makes it very, very flexible. Should you hit trees and branches, very, very durable that way. Accessory ready, you betcha. Let's talk mechanical specifications. So under the hood of the base model, you get this engine. That's an EcoBoost 2.3 liter turbo inline 4-cylinder engine. You'll notice the turbocharger down there, and that makes approximately 300 horsepower. You can also step it up to a 2.7 liter twin turbo V6, and that gets you about 330 horsepower. And if you go with the Raptor, it steps it all the way up well over 400 ponies. In this base engine, you can also opt up to get a 7-speed manual gearbox, or in fact, they all come featured a 10-speed automatic transmission, which this particular vehicle features, and it works quite well, I might add. Now, when you look at vehicles like this that you plan to go off-roading, you want something that's easy to fix. What if something happens in the bush? You have to think about these practical terms. Well, first of all, battery access, very easy, front and center, easy to lift in and out. Fuses, easy to get at. Your hoses, hose clamps, you're using that good old all-tension spring hose right there, and that is very durable and reliable. Not like some of the products you're finding in Mercedes, BMW, that have those very unique pieces. These ones here, you could probably get a generic hose, slap it together, and get on your merry way. Everything's accessible on the top. Fluids are all available, easy to access, no extra plastic. You'll notice there's no fancy beauty covers on top of this vehicle. And in a lot of ways, that's good, because all those beauty covers, all that does is create heat, keeps the heat locked in, and also just more junk to throw away when it's time to service these vehicles. Now, it's a very simplistic setup. That I'm not one that's touting Ford's best engines. As a matter of fact, I think they've got some of the worst engines in history. With the 1.5 liter EcoSport, carries that EcoBoost engine with the wet timing belt. That's just a bad system waiting to fail. 2.3 slightly better. The 2 liter people have had some great success with. The 2.7 is a pretty solid engine, other than more recently, if you go with the upgraded 2.7, know that there was a recall for dropping valves. The intake valves on those cars or those vehicles, whether it was the F-150 or the Bronco or any vehicle that was carrying that 2.7, had a run of vehicles with some bad intake valves from the supplier that would fracture and the head would fall off into the engine, and lo and behold, you had a catastrophic engine boom. That said, check the recalls on that. Otherwise, the 2.7 cam phasers are the only issue if you're not doing your maintenance appropriately. Go with the larger engines. The 2.3 does fine with 300 horsepower here, but it's always nice to have a little extra oomph. Let's start at the cargo section, because that's what a lot of people care about. So this vehicle here, you can pull this handle and naturally you can open that up, and then this is just free to go. Now, to note, you can also get this vehicle in a 2-door or a 4-door, and as well the hard top or a soft top is available. So there's a few different options. But in this vehicle here, you have tie downs. These tie downs on all 4 corners allows you to tie down rugged gear. If you're hitting the off-roads, you don't want things flying around, so it allows you to cross strap or tie things down in there. Here, you actually have your access here for your jack, because your tire's on the back section, but that allows you to do a full-size tire swap. Speaker, 12-volt outlet at the back. Maybe you're trying to charge some equipment, maybe you're out camping. That's great access there. Maybe even an air compressor, anything. This just gives you a level of flexibility that a lot of vehicles simply don't have. Everything's on these struts, easy to use until they stop working. But here you have the roll bar. You'll notice all the way along there's a beautiful roll bar, so when you take this hard top off, you actually have the proper rollover protection in this vehicle, and an accompanying speaker with a light setup right on there as well. Right here, more tie downs, but more importantly, other than the child systems here, if you've got little one seats that you need to tie down, you have anchor points, 3 of them in the back of this vehicle. You also have a 60-40 split. This allows you to drop this seat back like this, and adjustable headrests to make everything very, very comfortable. Now, there is a lot of plastic. I'll be first to admit, a lot of this plastic just does not inspire, but I will say, on a side note, it is an off-road vehicle. This isn't made to be like a Mercedes or Audi. This actually, in fact, is made for rugged duty. Some would argue that it just looks cheap. Others would argue it's functional. It's very easy to clean, I'll give you that. So I see this vehicle's almost new with only 6,000 kilometers on it, and it's already got some scratches and nicks on it. So plastic, the problem is it scuffs and then it looks like crap. But it is functional and it's easy to clean and well wearing. If you had leather back here, that would just be a disaster. Lots of electrical connections throughout, and ultimately a ton of space. And you'll notice it's a frameless window. It sort of has to be because of this. That being said, when you close that, you'll notice the window rises up and rises down. So when you open the handle, it drops down. Cute little quirk on that, isn't it? Now you do get these nice brushed aluminum handles. I believe it's out of touch with the rest of the theme of the vehicle, but that's my own personal opinion. I do like the fact that they've changed up some of the coloring and texturing in this vehicle. Extra storage, very, very cheap. Very, very cheap. No significant cuteness right here. It's all very basic. Feels very much like a fisherman's tackle box, which is probably what you're doing. You're probably going fishing or outdoorsy. So that's all you have. Lots of plastic. Fantastic. But right here, I do like these seats, and these fabrics here very much look like denim jeans. So that's a cute look. Now again, you step it up, you can move up to different types of fabrics. In some model trim levels, you can get leather interior. Now as you look up here, you'll see you have those latches to disconnect that center section of roof to allow to lift out for that. Now let's jump in here. I will say it's a bit of a stretch. I'm not the tallest guy at about 5'11". It's basically a bit of a reach. I have to really step in here. That said, there's a ton of space. I mean, I've got a lot of headroom here. Take a look at this. I've got a lot of knee room right here as well. Right there. A couple of drink holders for you and your buddy who gets stuck in the back. And of course, look around here, magazine holders, both sides. And you do get your window controls, you do get heater vents, and most importantly, your plug-ins. You have a 110 outlet, so an inverter connection right here. You can plug in anything that's 120 or a household receptacle right there. And over here you have other plug-ins for your electronics. Just a great setup. They're actually thinking about those people in the back. Now more features, and you're gonna notice this ruggedness throughout. And I wanna emphasize with an exclamation mark, ruggedness. And I love the feel of it. Now there's a lot of plastic, but it's made to last. Plastic is durable, flexible, and easy to clean, easy to wash. But there's a ruggedness throughout, and I want to point some of those details out. Right here, you've got a holy pooper handle right here for the person trying to get out of this section. But let's climb into the front, and we'll notice more ruggedness. So before closing the door, you have other controls, your door locks, more plastic, fantastic, and more storage right here. But they do it in a way that's not that fancy bin. They actually just give you this magazine holder right there. You'll notice more lovely script. But here, another holy pooper handle right there. And notice quirks, things that just show a certain level of ruggedness. They show aluminum dash here. There's rubberized buttons that are designed to get wet. I love that thought process. So if you're getting rain in here, you know that this is going to tolerate a little bit of wetness. Now I wouldn't put this vehicle underwater, but that does look like they've provided a concession for getting wet. Now down here, all the knobs and everything look like rubberized, and they have a very tactile feel. I love that. Start stop button there. But again, more to the durability piece. Look, these exposed screws. I love that look. And more of that over here. Exposed screws right there as well. And just the overall feel with a holy pooper handle over there as well, and lots more plastic. It's a clear indication a lot of thought was given to the idea that you could introduce water into the dash. You could introduce water into the interior. And it's made in such a way that it's going to hopefully resist getting water into some really critical electronics. Very nicely put together, I might add. Now, a couple amazing quirks that I guarantee Jeep did not think about, and I love this. I mean, I'm a GoProer, I'm a YouTuber, get it. Right here. So if you look up here, you have room for all of your junk right here. If you have some equipment, maybe your wallet or just odds and sods. But look at right here. They give you this port here, and you have a couple of plug-ins. So a couple of lightning chargers, I think, or USB-C or whatever. They give you a couple of chargers here. Should you want to mount your equipment? Well, where do you mount your equipment? Well, you could set it in here, Or look, there's a 1/4-inch mount. So if you actually have a mount or fitting to mount your GoPro right in the center of the dashboard, what a fabulous idea. You can mount your camera here, either look backwards or look forwards, and you can plug it in and keep it powered up for hours. You have all this rubberized business here, and overall they really give a good attention to detail. Simplicity wins here. Simplicity, and I know that's what a lot of people are looking for these days with all of the extra controls that go digital. A lot of people just love old-fashioned knobs and buttons. So for your basic controls, your stereo controls, your heater controls, everything is knobs and buttons, just as it should be, easy to get access to and long lasting. Down here, you have your shifter, and it's relatable. You can either go manual mode, or you can go with, let your 10-speed automatic transmission shift as it would, and you have these nice details like the little horsey on the shifter here. You have this great little knobby Gort mode. So Gort's modes, or goat mode, or Gort mode, whatever you want to say, I don't care. But you've got 2 high, you've got 4 low, and you've got 4 high right here. And of course an auto mode. Now this is very easy to shift on the fly. You've got your window controls right here and your mirrors. Everything's buttons and knobs, makes it very simplistic. Now the only piece of tech, everybody likes a little bit of technology. First of all, you have a digital display. I like the looks, the graphics of it. Looks very, very cool. Look at that, nice graphics on this vehicle, and it just shares everything, just the bare minimums, all you need. Basic controls here, you have your speaker controls, you have all kinds of other miscellaneous controls, really stereo related, just so you keep your hands on the wheel. But over here you have this nice little touchscreen. You'll notice it's very responsive. I did notice it's a little slow to get in, so if I want to click in, there's a bit of a pause, but otherwise it allows you to change any of your features of the vehicle, and you can do it at hot. Lighting, locks, windows, remote startup, 30-minute idle, max idle, so it'll even shut down the vehicle after it idles for too long. You can turn that on or off. Key detection alert, rear occupant alert. So there's all kinds of great features on this vehicle, but nothing really too excessive. That's the point. It's all about being frugal, simple, basic, and ideally reliable. Down here, a couple of cup holders for your Slurpees. You can put your goodies down there, maybe some spare change. Look, you even have more electronic plugins, and of course a charging station right there. And I would say there's a real aroma of plastic. There's a lot of plastic in this vehicle for sure, but again, it's easy to clean, and the benefit is if something gets wet, most likely it's going to shed the water fairly well. If you like this review, definitely want to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell, let you know when the next amazing review is up. I have a big, crazy year ahead of us. All right, let's go for a drive, shall we? Hit the start button, the go button. All right, so again, remember, we're driving the base model. That's the 10-speed with the 2.3 liter Turbo 4 EcoBoost. So it's got about 300 horsepower, but a lot of that power is coming mid-range. You don't get a lot of out of the hole. It's a little sluggish out of the hole for sure, but because the 10 speeds are available, and because you have turbo power mid-range, you know, the gearing is always there to sort of match up with a small turbocharged engine. A lot of people honestly say there's no replacement for displacement, and I would tend to agree with that. But what they're trying to do now to accommodate smaller turbocharged engines is by utilizing 8-speed, 9, 10-speed automatic transmissions that makes up for some of the shortcomings of the torque and the power band of the engine. What I will say, first off, that it's a little bit more compliant. It feels a little bit smoother already than the Wrangler. You know, I've been in many Wranglers. I've owned a Wrangler. I owned a TJ many years ago. The TJs, the Wranglers are a little more robust. They feel more dedicated for off-roading. They feel more off-road capable, at least first off. But all indications, when you actually put them to task, these Broncos are doing just as well as anything that we're finding from the Wrangler front. I mean, the Wrangler Rubicon is an exception, lockable front differential, rear differentials. I mean, there's the Jeeps do what they do, and they do it well. But the Bronco is a very, very compelling conversation. It's a smoother highway ride. Now, if you get the more upscale versions with the beefier tires, you're probably going to get a little bit more road howl. But this one here is actually not too bad. I mean, it ultimately has street tires that you're going to find on garden variety two-wheel drive pickup trucks. And so because of that, you're getting a much, much quieter ride. Now, there's a little bit of noise. When the engine starts getting up to howl, it starts to make a little bit of noise. But that's to be expected out of a 4-cylinder. Although it doesn't sound whiny like some of those 2 liters and 1.8s. It actually has a bit of a growl to it. Here, listen, take a listen. You know, it actually has a bit of a V6. I love that. I love that sound. It has a bit of a V6 sound to it, even though it's not a V6, it's a 4, but it's a pretty large displacement, 2.3 liter turbo 4. It's pretty large. Actually, I love the growl of it. Now, I'm not one advocating for 4-cylinder engines. I'm not a big fan of 4-cylinder engines in general. It's got a little bit of oomph to it because of the turbos, and it sounds pretty good too for a 4-banger. Most 4-bangers really don't sound good at all. But this one here actually has a pretty nice sound. This is not quite as edgy as a Wrangler, but I feel like it drives more like a truck. If you can imagine driving a late model Ranger, maybe an F-150 STX, you know, something like that with their base trim engines. It's kind of how it feels. Even the ruggedness of the chassis, it feels like a truck. If I can say it, I'm actually falling for this. I love the personality of the vehicle, and actually, you know, I had a Jeep, and like I said, I don't know. I feel like this feels more truck and less dedicated SUV, if I can say that. The other thing I noticed with the Wranglers, they tend to get wallowy, and a lot of you are aware of that, you know, the death wobble, and more so pronounced because of the looseness in the front end. So with miles, the Wranglers get a little bit loose in the front end, and then they get a little dangerous at speeds, they get wallowy. But even out of the box, they're a little bit darty, if I can say. They have a little bit of a back and forth, and you know, they're not as straight and narrow, and the steering is a little vague. I would say this one has a little bit nicer steering. The steering is more on point, and it's a more precise feeling vehicle, period. And so if you're looking for the vehicle that's a little bit better blend, or no replacement for displacement, I would strongly suggest maybe looking in the 2.7, maybe drive them back to back, because I just drove a 2.7 and now I'm driving the 2.3, and the 2.3 works. It's working nice, it's quiet, it has a bit of a growl to it. But I would say that overall, the 2.7 gives you more of that torque. It feels more muscular. It's not way up on power, but it just feels a little bit more muscular, if that's the best way I can spell that out. Whee! Not fast, but certainly enough. So if you just need a fun SUV that's a little different than the rest, I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, with this roof, you've got the hard roof. I would recommend going with the hard roof, unless you live in a place like California or Florida. The added security you have from having a hard top is actually quite nice. You're able to store goodies in here without worrying about your roof getting cut or ripped, or have somebody break into your vehicle. It's going to last better too, you know, especially now if you're further north and maybe you live in the Salt Belt or some of the snowy climates. You're definitely going to appreciate the hard roof. It's going to hold up a lot better over time. So I would definitely ante up for the hard roof like this. You can get a manual gearbox. I'd prefer driving manual. I'm not sure about the rest of y'all, but manual gearboxes are always fun. I haven't driven one in the Bronco yet, so I can't really speak to its personality, if it matches the vehicle or not. But I can honestly say this 10-speed auto works quite well. Ford's had a few problems with cam phasers here and there, and then that 1.5 has been problematic. But I believe the 2-liter and the 2.3s have been better anyhow, as well as the 2.7s. Yeah, see? And then it overruns for a bit. That's the only part I'm not loving, but I believe that's the transmission just assuming that you're going to keep accelerating and sort of holding the throttle input. But other than that, this thing is absolutely magnificent. Yeah, there's a little squeaky back there somewhere. I don't know if it's the roof or some of the hardware. It's a little bit of a squeaky back there. But you know what, with a vehicle that roof comes off, I suspect you're always going to have challenges with keeping some of that noise down. It's not built like a Rolls Royce, but it's a phenomenal vehicle. I love this vehicle. I'm charmed. And I believe with a 3,500 pound tow capacity, it's also not amazing. But if you have a small boat or a small utility trailer, maybe you got to haul your quad off-roading, it'll do that much for you, or maybe your sled. Now, none of these are meant to haul a lot of weight. The Jeeps aren't either. They have a pathetic tow rating. So does this vehicle. The tow rating is not good on this. 3,500 pounds, but there is a versatility there. And just the fact that the roof comes off, it's a great off-road vehicle. The 4Runner, another great alternative. If you're looking more durability, reliability, we know that's got it covered, but then it doesn't have some of the cute factor. You know, the 4Runner is a little bit more conventional SUV with a strong off-roading capability. This one here Feels like it's got some of the cuteness with the roof and some of the other gadgets inside. I love this thing. I'm charmed. Let's do a quick quality control review on this, shall we? And with all of that said, more great reviews right there and right there. If you love this one, you're really gonna love those others. Hope to see each and every one in the next one, everybody. See you real soon. Bye-bye.